All right, I'm here with Mr. Marley. Mr. Marley has an issue where he might be guarding his food or have a resource guarding problem. So in this video, I'm going to go over some tips you can use if you have a dog that does growl or has a resource guarding problem. Now, fact of the matter is, a growl is the antithesis of aggression. Most of us see your dog growl and want to punish or correct them. We teach puppy classes, and this is a big problem that we run into where people do that. The puppy's like, that's fine, you don't need to growl and warn anybody, I'll just go straight to a bite. That's not a good thing. So anytime your dog is growling, we want to interpret, what is he growling at? What's going on? Is somebody getting too close to him? Is there an activity that's stressing him out or something like that? And we want to control the environment. Always, that's our opportunity, that's our responsibility as a guardian, is to put the dog in a good, safe position. So if your dog is ever growling, you never ever punish your dog for doing that, because I promise you it will make it worse. Instead, find a way that I can recreate that situation, make it positive, and that's what I'm going to show you how to do right now. Now there's an expression, don't bite the hand that feeds. And that comes, I believe, from this. So I've got a handful of his kibble right here. Now normally his kibble's down and his guardian walks by, he growls and will lunge at her. Now that could be resource guarding. Now for resource guarding, I have videos on my website for that, so if you have a resource guarding problem, they can guard a person, place, or a thing. I have dogs that guard their kennels or the air around them. So that's the case, you basically approach the dog, wait for it to freeze. We normally don't interpret that. The freeze is you're getting too close. That's my warning. I stopped what I'm doing. I'm freezing to let you know you're getting too close. We just keep on coming towards them. Then they lunge at them because we didn't hear what they said. So if you're resource guarding, what you do is you approach the dog. Let's say I approach from this direction. I get to 10 feet and he freezes while he's eating. I would stop at 10 feet, make note of the distance. I'm at 10 feet, walk really far away, wait for him to go back to eating. Then I would approach, but this time I would have a very high value training treat in my hand. And this time I would stop at 11 feet. So 10 feet is where he growled. 9 feet is where he barked, and 8 feet is where he lunged, for example. So at 10 feet he freezes, so I stop at 11 feet before he even does that, and then what I do is I roll a treat towards him. I roll it towards the bowl. And then I turn and walk away. And let's say that this is where he is. So I'd approach from this angle, stop at 11 feet, roll a treat, walk away. Approach from this angle, stop at 11 feet, roll a treat. This angle, obviously we're tight quarters here. But the idea is you want to approach the dog from multiple angles, at least twice. So here, 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 and then repeat it a whole another time. And maybe do that 1 or 2 meals. Then what we would do is then we would go to 10 feet. At this point, he shouldn't be freezing at 10 feet. We just proved that when we approach, not only are we not going to take your stuff, we're going to make your stuff better. Treats fall from the sky and nobody takes your food. And this takes a lot of practice. You might have this 5 meals, 10 meals, or whatever it is, but eventually you get to the point where you're right here and you're plopping like wet food into his bowl with use a long handled spoon when you do that. But again, what you're signifying, sit, is when the human approaches, not only are they not going to take my stuff, they're going to make my situation better. Now that's if it's a resource guarding problem. You might have a resource guarding problem, also might have a dog that just has learned to growl and kind of communicate that way. So what we're going to do over now is a little bit of a handling exercise. So I have his kibble. I'm going to put his kibble in this hand, my left hand. I'm going to invite him over to eat it. And what he's doing, I'm taking one finger and touching his, and so he stopped. I'm not petting him, I'm just touching him. And see how he's moving away from it. Now, because I didn't ask for more criteria other than a touch, that time, that was the 3rd attempt, he didn't move away. So now I grab another handful of treats, or of food. Let him start eating first, then touch. And he's eating all the food. So the first stage is just one finger, and you're touching him on his rear hip. You're going pretty far away from his mouth. So you want to feed him basically all of his meals by hand this way, and then basically what you're going to do, so he starts eating now. Now, and this I'm going to do faster than you would normally do. So he dropped it, so I told him, I have my hand away. Now I have 2 fingers, and see that 2 fingers, he moved away, because I'm moving too fast. I'm doing that for demonstration purposes here. So for you, you might have 1 or 2 or 3 meals where you're just holding 1 finger. So you can do that where 1 finger is fine, then you try 2 fingers, he stays there. Then eventually 3 fingers, 4 fingers, and eventually you have all 4 of your fingers back there. Then once you can get all 4 or 5 of your fingers and he still eats and doesn't oscillate away from you, then you let it, then you would do, I'll try it here, and probably will move away. Is I might pet a little bit. And again, see how he's moving away. Oh, there we go. And see how he's got that lean on his leg? That's an indication I'm uncomfortable as well. Normally dogs' legs are right underneath him. So again, all you're going to do is touch until he no longer recoils or moves away. Then 2 fingers, 3 fingers, 4 fingers. Once you get to 4 or 5 fingers, then you're going to start petting again way back here. And then eventually, you're going to work your way up closer and closer to his mouth. So I'm not going to touch him for these things, but I would start petting here, and then next meal I'm petting here, next meal I'm petting here, here. Eventually, you want to get to the point where you're doing, we'll see if I can achieve it here. And if he nips a little bit, this is why you don't want to do it too fast. So what I do is go here. This is pretty advanced, so don't try to do this one right away. I gave him a lot of treats outside, I know what I'm doing, so I can move a little faster. This is probably going to take you anywhere from like about 3 to 6 or 10 meals. That's okay, it's not a race. So the idea is we're getting him used to it, and eventually you might want to switch it. So you feed him in this hand, and then do it on this side of his body as well. But the idea is you're gradually cubing forward, and so now he doesn't feel like, obviously I'm not biting your hand because it's providing the food, and you're right here. Now the resource guarding, a lot of times if you approach, that's when they get that freezing level. So in this case, I have the resource in my hand, and he's approaching me versus me approaching him when he has the resource, which is why it's a different dynamic. We might do a little bit of both. But the idea for this is eventually get to the point where you can just go over there, reach underneath him, and this is something that some people have to come back and do. They did it as a puppy, and their puppy starts growling again. They have a kid, or they have construction or something that stresses them out. You have to go back to it. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with it. Just like anything else, sometimes we have to brush up on our math, or our driving skills, or our typing skills, or whatever it is. But we just want to get him used to it, and not only see that when a person approaches, not only going to take your stuff, it's a positive, or when they're feeding me, I'm gradually getting desensitized to being touched while they're providing me with the food. Now, one last little tip. Dogs eat near the rank. So make sure before you do this exercise, you eat something first. I put food in his bowl, wash your hands, then you eat something first. Wash your hands, it's crumb time. And then you're feeding him one step at a time. And I did that in about 4 handfuls. For how much you feed him, I would try to divvy it up so it's probably about 8 to 10 handfuls. That way you get more repetitions. And that's definitely not something we want to end the video on, buddy. How about we do a sit? Sit. Why don't we come over here for some crap? Hey, Marley. It's right here. Sit. This is Marley. Sit. And these are some tips and tricks you can use if you have a dog that likes to growl or bark or lunge at people who approach it when it has some food.